What's up guys, Joe of 26 here, and today I am talking about one of my favourite things, the Final Fantasy TCG. I only got into it this year, but already it's become so much fun and I've so enjoyed it. So today I am doing something very interesting. I was talking with Liam on Facebook, and he's only ever played decks that were straight out of the box. So he asked me for some strategy advice, as he naturally does, because clearly he is worse than me at all card games, and since he is not in this video to defend himself, I will happily and publicly state I am better than Liam in all card games 100%, don't look into it. So I'm going to do a deck profile of my Final Fantasy deck. Now it's very bizarre, as you will see on screen now. So my deck works with kind of a mix of ice, fire, a little bit of lightning, and then some light and darks thrown in. I say light and darks thrown in, there's only two different cards of that style, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to go through each card, or at least each card group, one by one, and just say why I keep them around and why I enjoy having them in the deck. That was almost a sentence. So starting off, we have the Emperor. Now I run 3 copies of this card, mostly because of his ability. If he is destroyed in any way, so by summon, by attack, just generally if he is put from the field into the break zone, I can summon out another one of him, but it's dulled. Considering there is no limit on different cards, it's all just 3 for each card, this means I get out 1 Emperor, and then I know he's got another 2 lives, so long as I don't lose him to damage. He's become kind of my equivalent of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Adam, for those of you who don't know, when we duel, Adam uses a Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, and his method is just spam out the blue eyes, spam all over the place, and just every time we see a Blue Eyes card we cringe a bit. This has become my version with the Emperor. However, for games when I can't use the Emperor, I like to throw out this Cloud. Now, you can only have 1 dark or 1 light on the field at a time. So if I'm having a day where the Emperor has been thoroughly destroyed, Cloud here makes, if nothing else, I've heard people use the phrase beat stick, and I think that's pretty true. He's got good attack, he's got brave, so I can continuously use him to both swing and block. Overall, he's just a nice cheap little card, pretty strong. And he's a legendary, so I can have him in there, if nothing else, for bragging reasons. Now, this is where Liam gets salty, and Adam gets salty, and I'm going to a tournament at the Southampton Forbidden Planet, April 2nd. This is where I'm going to make a lot of people salty. I'm currently running 3 copies of the 5-drop Sephiroth. What does he do? Well, besides from being a 5-drop Sephiroth, he has First Strike, and when he is placed into the field, both players discard 2 cards from their hand. Now think about it this way, in this game you have 5 cards in your hand, you only draw 2 per turn, and although that leaves you with a lot of cards, it's very rare, well for me at least, from the style I play, to have that many cards still in my hand. So to have Sephiroth out, I will literally just throw away all my hand, throw out Sephiroth, and then the opponent has to discard 2 from their hand. So we're both in a position, no hand, just what we have on the field. Sephiroth is ready to swing and will obliterate anything that isn't up to scratch. Actually, if we quickly cycle back to looking at my whole cards in general, you'll notice I do not use a lot of backups, if any. My deck is very attack based. I don't find backups to be too useful, so generally just to have the field completely open for me to keep attacking and putting all of my energy into getting out powerful cards like this. It's a risky strategy, it means I don't have that many special abilities going for me, but when it only takes 7 damage to kill, if you can get out 3 cards, so say Sephiroth, an Emperor, and then another card of at least 7,000 to 6,000 attack, you can just easily win in 3 turns, and that's all I need with a deck like this. So moving on, we have the strategy that came with this deck, the Final Fantasy 13 deck. I chose that one because I've never been a fan of 10. 7, I found a lot of my friends were getting, so I didn't want to just go for that. So 13 was left over, and I am so glad I chose that, because it is just such a nice combo of these two cards. With Sarah, as soon as she's placed onto the field, your opponent discards a card from their hand. This deck has a lot of nice get rid of your hand, get rid of your hand, get rid of your hand cards. And then if you follow that up with Noel, he can boost Sarah's attack up. Now Noel is not much by any standard. Besides from this one ability, Noel is pretty much worthless. But if you get Noel and Sarah together, this attack will be brutal. And up until I had my first Emperor and eventually got Sephiroth, these two cards just won me every game. Every time I got both of them out on the field, I'd won. Moving on, now these cards I actually only got because I am a massive fan of Worlds of Final Fantasy, and as soon as I heard that there were cards of them, I instantly sought them out. Starting with Rain. Rain's basically used to summon Lan. When she enters the field, you can search for a card named Lan and add him to your hand. I don't actually tend to use the extra effects, but with stuff like this, yeah, I reckon it will pay off. To give him an extra 1,000 attack when he's already at 7,000 is pretty good. Now Lan himself, this is where things get OP. Because, and I'm going to read this directly, Lan cannot be blocked by a forward with a power greater than his. Lan cannot block a forward with a power greater than his. Now what this basically means is, Lan has got to be the attacker. But unless they have a 7,000 attack card, or they have some way to weaken Lan, then basically Lan is unstoppable. People have to combo him if they want to get rid of him, otherwise he's just going to destroy things. Now similarly to that combination, I have a combo here. This one I have not had the chance to put into practice yet. I've actually added these two specially for the tournament, because I had heard such high things about them. So again, we'll start off with Lasagna. I refuse to say it the correct way, his name is forever Lasagna. When Lasagna enters the field, choose one forward your opponent controls and dull it, and if you control Squall, freeze that target as well. Lasagna also gains a 2,000 attack bonus for having Squall on the field. That puts him at 9,000. This card will destroy things if you have Squall. Speaking of, if on Squall's card, if you control Squall, gain 3,000. So that puts them both at 9,000 if you have them together. When Squall enters the field, each player discards one card from their hand. If you control Lasagna, your opponent must discard one more. These two together could cause the apocalypse in this game. Now this monster. This card has become famous in my friend group, because this is what ruins dreams, ladies and gentlemen. This is a 7-cost Odin. Now, what that means is that you have to get it as an EX burst, otherwise you are destroying more than your whole hand to get this thing out. But if you do, he can just destroy any forward. That's it. No side effects, no special requirements, just choose one forward, break it. Next up, summon-wise, I have these two. Now, one of them is a shiny, but you can get both these cards in the standard 13 deck. Simply put, choose one forward, dull it and freeze it. So, it works well with the freezing, it works well to have just a couple more EX cards, and overall it's a fairly nice design. So, it's cheap, it's fun, and it does good work. What more could you want? Oh boy, Tifa. When I mentioned there was fire in my deck, no one ever would have expected some Tifas. Okay, Seriously though, these cards I do want to get rid of because I'm tired of having every fire deck have Tiefas in it. That said, they are very good cards, particularly when you add in... Oh, bloody hell, how'd you say that? Zangan-Rompa. When you add in Zangan-Rompa... we just lost views. When you add Zangan into this deck, it allows you to search for these Tifa cards, and that's not too bad. Overall though, the 2-cost Tifa is useless. The only reason I keep Tifa in this deck is because of a card you'll see later on that lets me summon out 2 or lower cost ones for free. But I have so many better cards for doing that, so that Tifa is just there to fill the space until the mannequins come out. I am absolutely in love with those mannequin cards. I'm going to have so many of them. Now what we have with these three, these are all cards that they're just basically added flavour. So they're cards that I can play to the field and will roughly hold their own, or they're just some nice little tribute bait. So they'll help feed and summon Emperor. Starting with Furion, 7,000 4 cost, and depending how many backups I tap, he gains some extra abilities, but we've already said I very rarely use backups, so who knows. I don't know whether to keep Furion or not. He's good, but I don't know if he's going to be that good. To me, at least. Next up, Samurai, fairly generic in every Final Fantasy VII deck, and I believe he's a common, yeah. Just brave, 6,000 attack, and I think I keep him around because the first time I got into... I think I keep him around because the first Final Fantasy TCG match I watched was done by Six Sages Gaming, and the game I watched, every time they summoned Samurai, that person won the game in that video. So I guess I just kept him around for a lucky tool, but I don't really need him anymore, so he's probably going to go when the mannequins come. As for Warrior of Light, at first glance he's not much, 2 cost, 5,000 attack, so pretty meh. But if Warrior of Light deals damage to a forward of cost 4 or more, double the damage instead. So, in other words, he's a nice little suicider card. So say there's on the very rare chance your opponent has a 10,000 cost forward. If Warrior of Light attacks it, well, attacks the opponent and they block, Warrior of Light will be destroyed, but he'll deal double the damage, so it'll take out that. Basically, it's forcing your opponent to decide, do they want to take damage, or do they want to lose one of their cards, unless they can boost it up. He is very situational, to say the least, and again, I mostly use him for tribute stuff, but he can hold his own, if needs must. Going on to the Final Fantasy VII cards again, I took the Cloud from the Final Fantasy VII deck, mostly because it's good attack, relatively decent cost, and it's reduced by the number of Final Fantasy VII cards, so since I got a couple of those in, like these two and the Tifas, it reduces him down enough to be reasonable, and as well as that he just has a nice ability. As well as that, I have a lower cost Cloud who basically has somewhat decent abilities. Again, his attack isn't much, but he's cheap, and if you control another Final Fantasy VII forward, he gains a bit extra attack, so he's worth it if you have the right cards for him. So again, he's a bit more of a flavour card. As for Zack, I'm waiting for a Fire Aerith. If they bring out a Fire Aerith, probably not in Opus 2, but in Opus 3, then I might use him a bit more, but right now he is looking like he is off the team. Moving on, we have some Red 13s, and these cards, I really underestimated them. When I first kept him in, I thought, Red 13, he's the only character from Final Fantasy VII I like. I'll keep him in because he's a paladin and he's a dog and he's awesome. Though, now that I've actually read the card, I've realised how good he is. So he's a 3 cost, 7,000. When Red 13 enters the field, choose one forward, it gains 3000 power until the end of the turn. He is an excellent late game card. So when you're at the point where both of the fields are pretty built up, bust him out, attach him to say my Sephiroth or to my Emperor, and I have an unstoppable force, and there is very few immovable objects that won't be broken by him. Why the fuck is there a 1-cost Squire in my deck? Dark Knights. Dark Knights are pretty cool. They do have the option to do some decent damage, but this one is way better because it has a lot less risk. For those of you who aren't aware, there's another Dark Knight that has 1000 more attack, but has the potential to screw you over. So I just stick with this version of him. Moving on to Terra. Terra's not too bad. At first she was just a bit of a flavour merged with a recommendation, but I haven't really had the chance to use her. Okay, now here's what Squire should be. Aragath is a 2-cost 3000, so not much, but again forces the opponent to discard from the hand. Sid is on the edge. I like him. He is one of my favourite 13 characters, but I don't think he's got enough to stick around too much longer in my deck. Now, this bastard. Now, this card I could build a deck around just on his own. Simply put, 6 cost, yeah, that's a bit much. 9000 attack, that's pretty good. When Goblez is put from the field into the break zone, so it's like a death rattle thing, probably won't be much. You may search for up to 4 forwards of cost 2, each of a different element, and play them onto the field. Their auto abilities will not trigger. So let me see. So if I was to say have something like that 2-cost Tifa, and then a 2-cost Lightning, and a 2-cost Ice, and if I was just to throw in another 2-cost of a different element, then I could just fill the field with nice cheap little shields. Well, wouldn't that be useful? Moving on. Now, Lightning is a fairly decent card. She was the head of the deck when I got it, and it's basically the same as Cloud, except when Lightning deals damage to your opponent, choose one forward they control and dull it, and that's basically in place of Cloud's all forwards gain 1000 attack whilst attacking, or however his works, who knows. I don't use them for that much. If nothing else, they're just nice powerful monsters that distract the opponent from your real strategy. Now, this guy I completely underestimated. When I got him, I didn't give him a second look, though if you read his effect and his abilities, he is not too shabby at all. So, cost 5, 7000 attack, how the frick do you say that? When Orlando Bloom attacks, deal 3000 damage to all forwards your opponent controls. Now, again, at first glance, that's not much, but he has 7000 attack, so again, this imaginary 10,000 attack card your opponent controls, he will destroy that. So unless they have something with over 10,000 attack, they will not be able to block this without losing a monster. Now I've got these 2 Dragoons. They're pretty basic, but they're fairly interesting. They both cost 3. The one on the left is a little better, having first strike and 6000 attack. But if you compare that to haste, it's just basically, would you rather deal the extra 1000 points over the next few turns starting now, or would you rather have it for longer and be able to make sure that they can survive a couple attacks? Now this is the only Shaz card I will give a second look to. Choose one forward, deal it 7000 damage. I am probably going to get rid of this and maybe replace it with a third one of what I'm about to show you next, but he's still a pretty useful card until I replace him with a Behemoth Fury. Now these guys, this is where we're talking. For starters, cost 1 less than Shaz. Following that, choose one forward, deal it 5,000 damage, or I can just discard an extra card and deal 7,000. Considering the 5/6,000 are pretty rare in my friend group, I don't tend to use it as much. However, to have this card come up when you take damage, and having a card ready in your hand so that you can just destroy the monster that's just caused you pain, yeah, this guy is pretty good, and he's won me a couple games. Chemist, the first backup of this video, and one that I am looking at and thinking, yep, need to get rid of. Speaking of Moogles, now this guy is actually pretty good, and he's good fun. Basically, if I have either Sarah or Noel, I can use this to search for the other, and if not, use it to tribute for Sephiroth, simply put. Now, Jill has never won me a game directly, but through her actions I've been able to put the pressure on the people I'm playing. For those of you who aren't aware what Jill does, she is either an EX burst or a backup. When she enters the field, choose up to 2 forwards and freeze them. Now, they don't get dulled, so they won't automatically freeze. However, the ability just for an EX burst to freeze the card that just attacked you is pretty good, and she's only a cost 2, so if you're running an ice deck, I'd say she's an essential. And that's it, really. So the main 5 takeaway from this has got to be the Emperor, Cloud, Sephiroth, the Lan and Rain combo, and the Sarah and Noel combo. With my deck, there's a lot of forcing the opponent to discard and then summoning out something big and powerful. I'm enjoying this deck. Me and Liam were talking, I win pretty much 7 out of 10 games against him with this deck. It's pretty good fun. And to beat the self-proclaimed King of Games, File Photo, yeah, it's worth it. And thank you guys for watching. Now, you'll notice my little wolf head on the screen right now. That is the logo for my personal channel, JoeWolf26. I have not got anything up there of kind of significance at the minute, but if you subscribe to that, then maybe when I start to do some more film stuff, which is on the way, you'll see bits there. Though, of course, if you want the main content, come to this channel here, Cage Corporation. Remember to subscribe, comment down below if you play Final Fantasy TCG. Thank you for watching, see you in the next video, and remember, message Liam, go to all Liam's videos and remind him, I am the best at card games in the friend group. I destroy him every time in Final Fantasy TCG. Hashtag real, hashtag Final Fantasy TCG, hashtag alternative facts. I mean, fact.